712, Route 54, first stop at 2219 Oak Ridge. I weighed a 2.8 pounds box. Scanned. Beep. I turned to set it down, and there was a package on my passenger seat. Medium. Brown. No scan. My home address in block letters. I had locked the van. Both doors. I always did. I logged it as misload. I put it behind the seat. It slid to the floor by the second stop. I braked normal. Nothing else moved. I put it back and wedged it with my lunch. At 8:03, 456 Pine, I saw a guy across the street. Ragged coat, hood up, dry cough. He rolled a few coins in his hand. 2 fast taps on a mailbox, then 1, then 3. It sounded like a knock pattern. 2, 1, 3. I told dispatch I had an unscanned package and a lurker. They said leave the box for return and keep moving. People hang around, they said. It's the season. The route app tried to swing me home twice. My map kept adding my address as a stop. I deleted it. Twice. It came back. I killed and restarted the phone. It whistled through radio static. A thin, high sound depending on the turns. I turned the radio off. The whistling leaked in anyway. Like it was in the wires. The guy showed again at 9:14 on Willow, and then at 9:32 on Hart. Same coat. Same cough. Coin rattle. The porch cam at Hart pinged my customer while I was on the steps. He yelled from inside, "Hey, your buddy's back." I checked his screen. Same face. Shot from earlier houses in my neighborhood feed. He'd been on people's porches ahead of me, standing off to the side, like he'd stepped back from my approach. Not a buddy. I called dispatch and made it clear. He's following me. They told me to mark the package as return, bring it back end of shift, log any incidents. Something about my tone must have put them on edge because they added a note. I saw it pop up. Monitor. The app rerouted me to a street 1 block from my place. I backed out and did a manual list. At 10:05, I stopped to pee behind a grocery. When I came back, there were wet footprints on the metal step. Bare. The kind from thin socks worn through. They went up into the cargo. I climbed in with my scanner light. No one. The prints faded against the mats. I looked at the back door. It was still locked and sealed. I checked the passenger door. Locked. The package sat where I had wedged it. I could feel my heartbeat in my hands. I told myself I had stepped in something and forgotten. I knew I hadn't. At noon, I taped a return to sender sticker over my name. Stupid, but it made me feel better. I used 2 more on the box. I wrote in red marker, "Wrong van." I shoved it deep behind the bulkhead. I ate in the driver's seat with the engine on. When I reached for my ID to clock back, there were 2 more return to sender stickers stuck over my name on the badge. Neat. I didn't do that. I don't do bits like that. I pulled them off. The adhesive tugged hair on my wrist. The dirty handprints showed up on my dash around 12:40. Smudges where no one sat. Grease and dirt like someone had braced, palms wide. The passenger seatbelt was buckled and twisted. I unbuckled it and the coins rattled somewhere low. I put my hand under the seat and felt something cold and round. A coin? It slipped deeper out of reach. I yanked my hand back so fast I scraped skin. I changed vans at the lot that evening. I told my supervisor, face to face. There was a guy in my van. He did not roll his eyes. He looked tired. "We got cameras," he said. "We'll review. Fill the report." I filled it. I listed times, addresses, every ping. I wrote about the knock. 213. He circled that in pen, looked at me, looked away. Take 57 tomorrow, he said. Different route. Different phone. Fresh start. It didn't matter. Morning, 6:50. I climbed into 57. Clean cab. New charger. Same radio. When I turned it on, the static whistled again. That thin, high, like a kettle far away. The route app loaded, and there it was. My home as stop 1. I deleted it. It came back at stop 3. I left it there, just to see what it would do. At the first delivery, I looked right, and the package sat on the passenger seat. Soot mark on one corner now. I hadn't touched it since yesterday. The label still showed my home. The return sticker had been peeled and stuck back at an angle. I pulled into the precinct lot at break and brought the package inside. The desk officer said, "You can't just leave mail here." I said it was mine. He looked at the label and said, "Then take it home." He wrote my name down on a yellow pad, slow, like he was humoring me. He watched me walk out with it. I put it back on my seat. 30 seconds later, it was on the floor. I watched it slide, but the van didn't move. My hands were on the wheel. My feet were flat. It moved like a lazy animal might shift, but it wasn't like that. Not intentional, just gravity where there wasn't any. Then a dry cough under the van and a jingle of coins. My legs went pins and needles up to the knees. I drove back to the warehouse. I said, "Call the cops now. He is inside my van." They came. They searched. 3 uniforms. They checked the cargo. They checked under the seats. They looked under the chassis. Nothing. One of them kicked at the wet spot where my footprints had been yesterday and said, "You need new seals." They left their card and told me not to burn any more gas on it. After they left, I pulled the dash cam dump. We had a unit facing forward and a small aftermarket that looked back. At 7:01, as I rolled out under the sodium lights, the backward cam flickered. One frame showed the rear door. The next frame, the bottom edge of that door, and a length of coat like a shadow peeled from a shadow. A hand, thin, blackened at the nails, hooked on the bumper. He rode there, under. I went frame by frame, heart in my mouth, and watched him disappear into the dark under my van like he sank up into it. I printed the still. I circled where his face should have been. You could only see one eye, washed out by the infrared. I did a decoy delivery at 14:20. I printed a label that said "My Home" in block letters, taped it to a manufacturer box full of air pillows, and set it in the open at the back of a cul-de-sac. I parked and watched in the mirror. A neighbor came out, looked at it, took a photo, went back in. After 5 minutes, my app pinged. Delivery confirmation. My porch cam sent me a clip. The ragged coat moved past my own door at that exact minute. He didn't take the decoy. He was at my house. He never stopped moving in the clip. He passed the lens and his head didn't turn. He coughed right into the mic. Dry. Mean. Coins ticked against each other. Knock, knock. Pause. Knock. Pause. Knock, knock, knock. 2, 1, 3. My wife texted me one word. Again? I left work early that day and slept in the break room. I didn't go home. I didn't want him near the kids. Dispatch was mad. I didn't care. I moved the van into a different bay. At 3:10, I woke to metal thumps. I thought it was loading, but I was the only one there. I went to the dock. The rear door of my van was up by an inch. A curl of tape hung from the lock. And on the inside of the cargo wall, above the wheel well, were footprints. Not on the floor, on the wall. He had walked his feet up like a kid does when they climb door frames. Flat black prints. Up, up. They turned and went along the inside of the wall where there was no floor. I couldn't picture the body that made them. I pushed the door up all the way and turned my light to the back. The boxes were wrong. Someone had pulled my bulk and smalls into a kind of room in the far left corner. Not stacked, built. A nest. A path between. The sides curved like shields. In the center was a blanket I recognized. The van issue accident blanket. My spare key ring sat on top. My house key. My old work key. I had hidden those in my garage 6 months back. Under the blanket were wrappers from my lunch and a mason jar with coins, filled halfway. And there was the package. On top of all that, neat, label facing up. I opened it. I did it slow, like it might bleed. Inside were my spare keys, like I said, and a photo of me sleeping on my couch. My mouth open a little, the lamp on. Taken from my hallway, low. The edge of the doorway was in frame, like whoever took it was pressed against the wall. My chest went cold to the bones. I sat down on the edge of the nest and felt the coins in the jar tremble a little with my weight. They made a soft tick. The radio crackled on in the cab by itself, and that whistle came thin again. I had the printout of the dash cam with me. I took it and went to the break room because I needed a wall and coffee and light. I stood under the fluorescence and stared at that one white eye. It was off-center. It made me think his head was turned wrong. I made copies. I stuck one to the corkboard. I circled the blur and wrote, "He rides under." The pen bled on the paper. The door at the end of the hall knocked. 2 times. Then 1. Then 3. Soft. I stood there with the printed face in my hand and counted it in my head, like a kid with a rhyme. 2. 1. 3. It was exactly steady. I didn't go to the door. I went back to the van and kicked the nest apart. Boxes everywhere. I threw the blanket onto the floor. I dumped the jar. The coins rolled and chimed. A few fell into the seam under the seat and disappeared. The radio whine climbed, shrill, like I had angered a tea kettle. It wasn't a kettle. I know that. I felt stupid thinking it. I took the package with me into the cab. I locked the doors. I didn't take my eyes off the right mirror. When the warehouse opened and the dock lights came on, I drove the van to the far end and backed against the dead-end wall. I hit the horn long. I wasn't going to be subtle. People came out angry and blinking. My supervisor walked over with his hands up. "What are you doing?" he said. "We got routes." I said, "Help me catch him." My palms left sweat marks on the wheel. He saw the handprints on my dash. His face softened in a way I hated. He stood off a little while I dropped the liftgate halfway. I left a gap just big enough for a man to try. I took a pallet jack and wedged it under the gate so it wouldn't bounce. I turned on every light in the dock. The van sat humming. The radio hissed and whistled. I got out and went around back. I threw the blanket down like bait. I set the jar upright next to it. Coins inside settled with that tiny tick. We waited. I could hear forklifts at the other end and guys talking low because of the show. I said, "Bring the still," and one of them handed me the print. I taped it to the door. "He rides under." I could see their eyes flicking to it and away. He came out from under the van like heat comes off a road. One shape, then more pieces. The coat, the hand. He was smaller than my brain had made him. He held himself close like he was cold, which he might have been. He didn't blink from the light. His face was just wrong in the way you can't point to. His eye slid. He looked past us at the blanket, at the jar, at the open space he had built for himself that I had kicked apart. He didn't look at the picture. He coughed once, twice. It sounded dry enough to cut paper. He rolled coins in his left hand. He said, No return. He said it like he was tasting it. Keep. Keep. Who are you? I said. My voice cracked. I was not cool. He said, I ride. I follow. You sleep. I was there. He licked his lips. They were cracked. You come home. I come home. His breath smelled like pennies and old coffee. He put his palm on the bumper like it was a friend. Hungry, he said, and the way he said it put the idea in my throat. I stepped back onto the liftgate, and he stepped with me. I hit the button like I was hitting him. It came up fast. He realized too late. He put his hands up. His coins spilled and danced. One fell to the crack and stayed there, right at the edge. The gate pinned him at the shin against the bumper. He made a sound like a chair leg scratched hard on cement. He didn't scream. He hissed a little. It didn't look like much from where the guys were. Up close, his skin went gray, and his mouth opened slow. He swung at me with that free hand and caught my shirt. We hit the inside of the door together. He was lighter than me, but strong in a stringy way. He tried to get his other leg out, and it didn't come. I hit the button again, and the gate jumped. It cranked harder. It pinned him solid. He sagged. He leaned his forehead against my chest and breathed hard through his nose. Dry. Rattles. He whispered right into my shirt. No return. Like a promise. Like a promise. I had a half-gallon of sanitizer in the cab. I grabbed it. I didn't think. I dumped it over the blanket and the jar, and the nest shreds. It splashed my shoes. I used my lighter. The flame took slow, then fast. The alcohol flash burned blue, then orange. The coins in the jar clicked and tapped as the glass cracked. He saw the fire and really moved then, all panic and legs and coughing wet now at the edges. No, he said. No, no. Short words. Hungry words turned to scared ones. He clawed at the liftgate like he could climb it, but it had him. He smelled like old mildew and pennies and something else that made my mouth fill with spit. I backed away and let the heat take my hair on one arm. My hands burned when the air shifted. He twisted once, and the shin went wrong, and he went halfway down and stuck there. They pulled me back. The guys dragged me by the belt. Someone grabbed the fire extinguisher and hesitated. My supervisor looked at me and looked at him and looked at the burning. He did it. He pulled the pin. He put the powder on the edges and left the heart of it alone like he was salting a steak. It was ugly. It wasn't a fair thing, and it wasn't clean. But it stopped. He slumped forward. He coughed into the powder like an animal in a pit. I hit the liftgate again and dropped it. He slid. He hit concrete with that same chair scrape. He didn't get back upright. He crawled under where he had turned to smoke and shadow before, and there was no under anymore. It was bright everywhere. He didn't go anywhere. He just made a small shape and then a smaller one. The cops came again. I told them everything, and it sounded stupid, even with the proof. They took the still. They took my badge. They told me not to go near a vehicle until HR called. They took the van out to the back and put tape around it. A tow came. While it idled, the dash melted from the heat that had run through it, and a coin, fused into the plastic near the HVAC vents, ticked as it cooled. Soft. Steady. Like a clock of its own. I put my finger near and it burned me, and I backed off, and I laughed once too hard at nothing. My supervisor told me to go home. I didn't have a home in the way I did. My wife had taken the kids to her sister. I got a text from HR. We need your statement. Another from dispatch. You're suspended pending review. Another one from the app. My route cleared, all stops canceled. But my home still sat there in the list, like a fat dot you can't clear. I put in a mail forward that afternoon online. I didn't even think why. Just a habit. Just in case. I walked into my building at dusk. The hallway smelled like the same old dust. The elevator dinged. I turned the radio on from reflex and got just static and that thin whistle again, even in my pocket. I shut it off and the whistle fell into the wires of the building, or my head. The light in my hall flickered when I opened the door. The package was there on the mat. Soot smudged at the corner now, like it had been near heat. My name on the label. Under it, a thin gray rectangle like a screen refreshed and the address updated. Not my old one. The new one I had typed an hour earlier into the post website. It ticked from one to the other, like a slow flip. I watched my own name jump lines. My forwarding address slid into place. The ink didn't smear. The light over the door hummed. The air in the hall got that penny smell. I stood there and didn't touch it. My hands were wrapped, and I could feel the throbbing through the gauze. Downstairs, somewhere far, someone knocked. 2, 1, 3. I held my breath and waited for a second round. It came from my side of the door then, the bell I never wired for patterns ringing it on its own. Ding dong. Ding. Ding dong dong. 2, 1, 3. The empty hall swallowed it. I watched the label finish changing and settle. I didn't pick the package up. I stood and timed my breathing to the soft tick in my head until it matched, and I couldn't tell the difference. Then I turned and locked the deadbolt and leaned against the wood, like that could do anything at all. Every story has a price. For this one, it's simple. A like and a subscribe. That's how we keep the ritual going. Miss a step, and the next upload might not find you. See you in the next one.